Hello, in this video, which is for Monica, the question is, how do you take something that's in a spreadsheet and then sort of reformat it for use within a data frame in Python? This project, Monica's project, is about connecting learning objectives with Bloom's taxonomy and then offering suggestions to university instructors who write learning objectives to sort of push them in a productive direction in terms of assessments, questions they could ask, and sort of a self-reflective look at their teaching, and if their teaching is pushing students toward the top of something called Bloom's taxonomy, where the bottom level is memorizing, and that's sort of the low level things that you might not want to prioritize. And the top level would be evaluating, creating, designing. And so this is, you could take a syllabus and look at the learning objectives and then get a sense of how challenging, how high is this in Bloom's taxonomy, and how might instructors, move up a level or two in terms of Bloom's taxonomy and orient their course and their learning objectives to more efficacious questioning, assessments, activities, etc. Okay, so enough with the blank screen. Monica created her assessment or her tool, which is really cool, in Excel. And so the question is, how might you take this? So what I did is I took the data that was in an Excel sheet, turned it into a comma delimited CSV file, and then brought it into PyCharm. And I'm showing it here. Here's the text version, and then the data version. And you'll notice that this category, this column, the verbs are unique. And then you've got the level of Bloom's is different. And then you've got these assessments, which are identical, and the questions, which are identical for every verb within the same level. But then you have a few verbs like construct that could be at the create level or at the apply level. Same with here, you've got a couple that are multiple, so they don't have anything here. So one idea might be, well, maybe you get rid of these, or maybe you figure out a way to add this back in by duplicating this verb and have one for understanding and one for creating. And then what might you be able to do once you bring it into a data frame? Okay, so first thing is we're going to need some packages. So we're going to grab 3 different packages. The pandas, import as PD, fuzzy wuzzy, import process, and NLTK. Make sure you've downloaded the NLTK content so you're ready to go on that. Okay, first thing we need to do is we need to read the CSV file into a data frame. So I've brought, you'll notice over here, I have, where is it? It's here somewhere, here we go. Here it is, the CSV file. So you'll notice, since it's in this same directory as the Monica Bloom's, which is right here, then it knows where to look. I don't have to give it a path. Otherwise, you could give it a full path and it would find it. Okay, so then once we've got that, let's just print out, run a few tests to print the first 8 rows, the names of the columns, and the types of the data. Let's see what this does. Okay. Okay, you'll notice down here, we've got, okay, so it's got verb and then ... question prompts, and we get multiple ones here. We've got the different columns, and then we've got what data type each of these are. Okay, what next? Well, we might want to get the data shape. So upon beginning, what's the shape of the data? And the shape means the number of rows and the number of columns. And then we might want to drop any column where all the data is missing from every row. And then we want to report, well, did we drop any columns because of it? Okay, that took a little bit. Hopefully you're watching this at 2.0 speed. Okay, so it says ingested data shape is 246 by 4. And after dropping empty columns, the data shape is still 246 rows by 4 columns, which matches up with this, right? Here we've got 4 columns. And if we scroll down to the bottom, 246 rows. It says 247, but this first one is the name of the columns. So there we go. Okay. The next part is a little involved. Okay, so we want to get rid of, remember when I was talking about these, like here on row 12, construct can be in Bloom's taxonomy at the apply or the create level. Go. So just let me bring this over for a second. You can see here. So in Bloom's taxonomy, what you want to do as an educator is you want to have your students hang out here. You want your objectives to be here. So if they're so they're design, assembling, constructing, developing, formulating new work, new original work, that activity will require them to remember things, to understand things, to apply things, analyze, and evaluate. So if you can get them to do create, you get many of these other ones for free. And that works as you go down. In order to apply something, you have to understand it first. And you have to remember some certain things about it probably. So that's why you want to stay toward the top in this. And there are lots of different ways it's shown, but they all sort of come down to the same thing. Is the higher, if you can hang out here with your learning objectives, then you're going to get these other ones for free. They're going to come along for the ride. Whereas if you just require your students to memorize things, then it's not guaranteed. In fact, it's unlikely that you're going to get many of these other ones. Okay. So back over here. So we've got these rows where they're not complete. So if we called these, we'd lose about 40 verbs of the 240. They just disappear because if we deleted any row that was incomplete, had null information in it, then we'd lose 40 rows. So instead of doing that, we can write a sort of involved function. Okay, so let's start that process. Okay, so we name it make new data frame. And then what we're going to pass it is an existing data frame. So it's going to take a data frame and then it's going to create a new one. And so the data frame we're passing it is this. and with these problems that it has, or these things that we see as problems. And then it's going to make a new data frame that it's going to return that hopefully, won't have this. Instead, it'll have construct in here twice, once with applying and whatever the assessments and question prompts are for applying, and then once in here as creating, like these are, so it'll be the same as these assessments or question prompts. Now you could do this different ways, right? You could just use a dictionary, or you could use lists. But let's see if we can do this with a data frame, or how we do it. Okay. So first thing we're doing is we're creating a new data frame, and we're giving it the columns of the past data frame. So this is a new data frame. It's basically empty of any data, but we know what the columns are because we're basically giving the columns the value of this past data frame. Okay. Then we need a for loop, or we need a for, yeah, I guess it's a for loop. So for index row in past data frame, iterate over the rows. So for each row in this past data frame, you can use the word row to reference it. You'll know. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to signal that, hey, this line needs some work. And how could we do that? Well, one of the ways we could do that is by looking at this unique, well, we could look here and say there's nothing there and say, okay, we need to do something. But this column, this cell, we've got more than one, right? So that's going to be our clue. And the thing we're going to use is this comma to determine, hey, there's an issue. So we're going to say, it should be indented. So if there's a comma in row level, so this is the level column, and in that row, in the level column, so in this spot, because remember, it's going to cycle through every single row. So this is like, think about this as row 1 or row 2. So row 1 in the level space, is there a comma? If there is, then let's do something. And what are we going to do? We are going to split that string that's in here, this applying 3 comma creating. This is just all one string. We're going to split it or explode it, and we're going to make a list of 2 elements, one element that's going to be this and one element that's going to be this. Okay, so let's go back over. Close that one out. All right, so level list is going to be a list of however many elements based on separation by comma. Okay, so then we want to do for level in level list. So basically this is just another for loop where it's going to run through it for each element in this list. So at row 12, you're probably getting sick of row 12, but at row 12, we're going to have 2 elements, right? So it's going to go each time for applying 3 and creating 6. It's going to do this once for each. Okay, then we need to create a variable to hold the value of level dot strip. And what that does is it takes away any white space any spaces before or after the actual string or the actual text. Because you'll notice here, when this breaks on this comma, this first white space is going to be here, and that's going to throw off our matching request. And so we want to get rid of that, and we do that by this strip. So we just make a new string that's called L, that's the same as level, only it's got white space stripped off the front and the back. If there wasn't any to strip off, then it's the same. Okay, let's just do this. That's better. Okay, so then matching levels, this is a new variable, equals past data frame, and then the past data frame again at the level is in L. So this is going to get all the matches, all the rows that have the same level value as L is. So it's going to say, hey, so the first time this runs, it's going to look for applying 3. It's going to say, hey, I want all the values that are applying 3. So at some point here, here's a bunch of them. There are some of them up and some of them down below, but here's a bunch of them applying 3. So it's going to grab all of these. We don't really need all of them, but this is just a way to get more than one of them and put them in the same spot. So matching levels equals this, and we have this new data frame. It's a subset that only has the creating or applying, etc. Rows in it. Okay. Now we're going to use the try function. So we use this because if we don't say try and something goes wrong, it just crashes. So we're going to try a couple things. We're going to name something assessment, and that's going to be matching levels assessment. So remember, we've got this data frame here, this new one that only has matches at the level. So it's only going to match applying. And so then that means that this assessments column, these are all going to be the same. And this questions column, these are all going to be the same. And we want to grab the value here and grab the value here because we need that value, because remember, we're dealing with an instance where, for instance, compute and applying doesn't have anything over here. We need something there, and we need particularly the same as the other applying have. So that's what we're doing here, is we're getting, this is just getting the value of the first one, but it's getting that value and it's putting it in this assessment variable so we can use it when we reconstruct the row that we're going to insert. Okay, guess what we need to do now? Yep, we need to do the same thing for questions. Okay, there it is. Now we've got questions, matching levels, questions, prompts, and then that same 0 location. Okay, now we're going to create a dictionary. There we go. Okay, now we've got a dictionary here, and the dictionary's got the verb, which is the row verb. So again, remember, this is all the way up here in this 4-indexed row, and it's going through each row. So we want that verb to be the same, right? Remember, so right here we've got compute, or if we go back up to 12 here, we've got construct. So we want to grab that same value in the verb column for that row. And so that's why we've got verb, the value in the verb column or in the verb space in that row is going to be what it was before. Okay. The level, instead of being both of them, instead of being applying, creating, it's going to be one time it's going to be applying, one time it's going to be creating. And then assessments, one time it's going to be for the applying one, it'll be the applying assessments, and the question, it'll be the applying questions. And then when it does the creating, it'll be the creating assessments and the creating questions. Okay. So it puts that stuff in. Okay. So after it tries, so this is the whole try, and it's just in line with the others. So after it does that, it adds, so you notice up here, we've got this new data frame. It's got the columns already. And then we're going to put we're going to take this new data frame. It's going to equal itself plus this new data that we just made in this dictionary. And it's going to ignore index, will be true. Okay. So then next, what happens if it doesn't work? Except, because you'll notice there were a couple of curious places, like look right here, this formulate and creating, it should have a value. It should have the value that this one has. But it didn't. And so when it doesn't, that can cause an error because there's nothing there, obviously. And we could test for that, but we're going to leave that for now. You could figure that out on your own. Or you could just do it the way I did it and just add it there. Anyways, so in the except, we want to print something so we know what went wrong, maybe, ideally, but if nothing else, so that we know that something went wrong and where it went wrong. So right here we say, well, something went wrong with L, which is, again, just the level with the stripped, and then in the row verb. So we know what is so we know that, oh, something went wrong with generalize and understanding. Then we know right where the problem was. Okay. And then we go out here. So if there was a comma, do all of this. Otherwise, what do you think we're going to do here? Looks like I could move these over. There we go. Okay. So here you'll notice that the verb is going to be the row verb, the level will be the row level, assessment, the row assessments. This is where we're going to have a problem with those that are empty, right? They're going to be empty still, and they'll probably get called. But again, that'll be all right. And then we're going to drop this in here. So this says, okay, take the new data frame, this one, and then add to it by this dictionary, these values right here. Okay. And then we're going to want to return that new data frame. So it's going to, for each row, it's going to run through this every single time. So it's going to do it 246 times. It's going to check to see, ooh, is there a comma? If there isn't a comma, then just take it as it is. If there is a comma, then split by comma, and once for one side, add the assessment and the question prompts that should be there. And then for the other side, or if there are three, because a couple times there are three different ones that have the same verb, make a row for each one. And print something went wrong. And then otherwise, just keep it how it is. We would probably add an else if in here. And that else if would take care of examples when, where was it? Here, like revise with 2 R's. That seems like a typo. Anyways, like here in revise, why would there be nothing there? So we could look to see, well, if there's no comma here, then check to see if there's something missing in assessments. And if there's something missing in assessments, you could do pretty much the same thing here where you got the matching levels for that level, and then you took the first one that was populated and then make that as the value. Okay, so this is returning the new data frame. Okay, what are we going to do then? Well, now that we've made this function, let's use it. So let's call it Bloom's frame 2 equals make new data frame, Bloom's frame. So this is the function, make new frame. And so when we pass it, here's Bloom's frame, which we created up here. And we're going to pass Bloom's frame here, and it's going to go through this, and it's going to kick out a new data frame, which we're going to call Bloom's frame 2. Okay. Now let's try printing. After adding rows for each level of a verb, the data shape is, and let's see what it says. So before the data shape was 246.4. So do you think it's going to go up, go down? What do you think is going to happen? Well, let's try. You see what happened? So here we've got the 246.4, and then we've got, well, something went wrong with understand 2 in verb summarize, and something went wrong with analyzing 4 in verb characterize. We don't know what happened there. We could go and check. And then it says, after adding rows for each level of a verb, the data shape is 299/4. Ooh, so we added 53 rows, and the columns are the same, obviously. Okay, now let's drop some columns. Let's drop any row that doesn't have complete data. So it doesn't have something in every column. And then let's find out what the shape is then. What do you think is going to happen here? Okay, so you look here, we had 299/4. Now we have 297/4. It's probably those couple of rows, where for some reason there wasn't data going across. So this one, formulate, and then there's probably some other one where there's just one row. So maybe it's this one here, 51, where look at that, there's nothing there, but there should be. And so if we filled this one in, let's just do that. Let's just copy this, and let's just paste it down here. Copy this, paste it here. Notice it's creating and creating. Paste it in there. Okay, Now if we come here, because remember, this is going to ingest that every single time. Let's see if now instead of 97, let's see if it's 98. Or if I should just go to bed. Ha! 298, 4. Okay. So like I said, again, we could and probably should make some else if statement here that would take care of it for us instead of doing it manually. But you get the idea. Okay, that's part one, getting a CSV file that was part of an Excel sheet into a data frame. Next time, we will do some stuff with it.